Okay, thank you, Jonna, and thank you all for coming. I really liked Jonna's concept of the links between teachers, because I think poetry being such a solitary endeavor and kind of an ephemeral art, as a student you really need someone who supports and encourages you. So Steve, thank you for doing that for me way back 20 years ago when I started off with my MFA at the University of Missouri. And my first poem that I'm going to read today is actually from a prompt from an assignment that Steve gave us in the very first poetry workshop that I took. And it was kind of a formula where he wanted us to write a self-portrait, but there were a series of questions that asked about milestones in your childhood that you had to answer, and you had to include those in the poem. One other clue that might help you with the very end of the poem: when I was in the summer during college, I went and lived in the former Bombay, India, and worked at a neighborhood settlement house there. And I had, on the weekends, I went with one of my colleagues to an ashram in Ganeshpuri, which is up in the hills outside Bombay. And the last two lines of this poem are from a Hindu prayer that I learned in the bus on the way to the ashram. Okay. This is called Self-Portrait Number 1. My brothers called me Kansas because my chest was flat. I cried in my parents' bathtub when Mom ran over the cat. And yet my youth was happy. I was not free from fear, the black lab who sank its teeth deep into my rear, the knuckle on my brother's fist when it was aimed at me, whatever would come after my father's 1, 2, 3. My ancestors are Midwesterners, proper, frugal, and nice. It's okay to break a rule once, but never break it twice. Swami Muktananda saved me in monsoon green Bombay. Sadh Guru Nath Maharaj Ki Jai. So I think Steve's idea about having us write self-portraits was pretty good, because generally in poetry, I think it's fair to say that poets may be in a perpetual state of identity crisis. And that I think poetry often is an expression of that. So Jonna picked one of my more recent self-portraits to be one of the poems here in December, this issue. And sometimes I feel self-conscious about what exactly it is, sort of what kind of a job it is to be a poet, and this poem takes that on a little bit. And coincidentally, it also relates to one of my favorite things that Marvin Bell wrote, which is 32 statements about writing poetry, which I recommend to all of you. I read it in a magazine in about 2002 and clipped it out, but he has a great list here of things. And the very last one, the 32nd statement is, "Art is a way of life, not a career." This poem is called Private Practice. My clients are syllables. I charge them by the consonant. When there's an ellipsis, I slip them a cheat sheet, and we do deep breathing until they regain their confidence. I do pro bono work with aspirants. Once I lost a villanelle to asphyxiation, but the elegies rallied around to help me get over it. I'm having a long-term affair with a sonnet, but it's strictly confidential. I could be barred if anyone found out. I've only told a limerick or two. I like to treat my haikus over sushi and my ballads with a French Bordeaux. I work mostly by referral. With 26 letters out there, I had to add a secretary and a receptionist just to keep up. Can't you hear their keyboards? Tap, 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 tap. So kind of as a relief from the constant self-examination, about a year and a half ago I started writing poems that were more in the voice of someone or something else. And this one is called What the Wind Says Before Bed. I'm not as superstitious as you might think. I pass through the turnstiles every day without fanfare. I ration my pleasures so as not to contaminate the gray clouds heading your way. My locomotives prowl across the plains in search of you. Do you flinch when you feel my hot breath on your neck? I'm never crooked. I adjust my motives to my howling moods. My motto, make me whistle. My lullaby, rest your head in my maelstrom. In this one, we hear from the sun. What the sun says this cold morning. Amscray time, you are now behind me with your fuss budget ticking and your neighborly nosiness. I'm gaining on you every day, shedding more light on your shady blunders. Go ahead and subtract while I add prisms and rainbows. I'm not caught up in your door jam. I have summoned the locksmith. February opens tomorrow. And this is from that same series. I thought it'd be fitting to read today because we have a full moon tonight. What the moon says at sunrise. I'm going away now, but that does not mean I don't love you. In fact, I'm quite fond of your parted lips. Let me seal them with mine before I disappear. Open them only to eat or to speak. Give me until sunset, when I will return to break your promise. As Jonna mentioned, I spent this last winter and spring living in New York and teaching a poetry workshop at the 92nd Street Y. My husband John and I are now spending more time there. And sort of following Steve's lead, I did give prompts to my students, and I also asked them to write a new poem every week. And to keep myself honest, I decided that I'd have to also make sure that I could do the assignments that I was assigning them. And in this particular class, I passed out the poem of Elizabeth Bishop, her wonderful villanelle called One Art, which is about the art of losing. And the assignment was to write about someone or something that you have lost or left behind. And this is my response to that. It's called Finding Woody and Sun Yi. I take a walk in the park most afternoons after lunch. And yesterday, feeling a little blue that our dog had died, our boys had gone to college, and the house where we raised them, a modernist suburban Midwestern nest, flanked by dogwoods and 3 species of magnolia, would soon be inhabited by another family, with younger kids and a younger dog. I was hoping I would run into someone I knew in this city, newish to me as a slightly more permanent temporary roost. And there they came, around the bend in front of Turtle Pond, holding hands, I think, or did I imagine that fleet feint of the familiar? Thank you very much.